Rendered dynamic content. In a earlier example, we were showing a module list returning a static list of module list items as shown here. And what we'd like to be able to do is perhaps render a dynamic list of modules. For instance, in a module list item, we have a static element, right, that renders the module like this, right? The module. We'd like to be able to pass an argument, maybe an object that represents a list of or a particular element. So what we could do is instead of the module list item rendering a static element, we could perhaps receive a properties from outside and then render a title. So what we could do in our example of a module list, we could pass an argument as the title. So we can say maybe let's grab that as an example, and let's paste it here. And in our example in the whiteboard, let's bring up the module list. Let's bring it up here, and let's remove modules for now. And no, not module 1. The module list is this one, and module list item, we're passing as argument these titles. But module list item is still just returning this one static list item of just module 1. So what we could do is here add the constructor declaration that takes in those properties that are being passed as arguments. Right, and then instead of module 1, we can use the this.props .title here, right? And now we have dynamic content that we can pass in as argument the data that we want to display. Right. Even further, what we could do is to declare the state of the application of this particular component by using a new feature called the this.state. Okay, this.state is a special variable that is treated in a peculiar way by components. Right, the component knows that the state has a special meaning, and it will remember this value across the lifespan of the component. We can initialize it in the constructor of the element. How we get it? It could be from outside, from somebody passing it to us through a properties, or it could be that we are fetching it from some server, based on some arguments that are passed to us. Right? Here we're going to hard code it for now. Right? So we're going to in the module list. Currently the module list. Notice that it has just properties all by itself. We're going to add to this a state, this.state. And we're going to paste it right here. So this.state contains an object attribute called modules that has several elements. It's an array of several elements, and it ends right here. That's the array, and that's where the object ends. That's a JSON object. Okay. So right now it's not doing anything. It doesn't change any rendering aspect. But what we could do is that now that we have an array declared in our state, we could create a function that iterates over that array and calculates what the resulting module list item should be. Right? I'm not going to do exactly the way it's here. What I'm going to do here is that here's a module list item, right? And instead of having just a whole bunch of these, right, I'm just going to keep just one. And this is going to be my template that I'm going to use to render all these instances. Right now it's rendering as a single module list jQuery right there, right? It's this one right here. And what we're going to do is that we're going to wrap this inside of an expression We're going to wrap this as an expression, and the expression is going to evaluate to whatever we tell it to evaluate. We're going to say that we're going to take this current state, right, that we currently have, and that we're going to map. Right, we're going to apply the map operator. Well, actually, this is state dot modules, and then we're going to map over the modules. And as we map over the modules, we're going to have map takes an argument. It takes a function that it calls repeatedly for every single element that is in the collection, in the array. Right? And as it iterates over them, it appends or it concatenates or accumulates all the results that each time that you call it. So whatever you return, whatever this function returns, right, it accumulates over time as it iterates every single item. So here's the so as it iterates, the function is going to take as argument the module object, and the module object is basically each one of these, right? First it'll be this, then it'll be that one, and so on and so forth, right? So as it iterates, module will have different values. So there's a function that well, the official syntax is it's a parentheses as an argument, and that it maps and it returns the following. It returns several module list items. Right. So if we refresh, notice that it iterated over the array, but it's always returning the same thing. Right. It's always returning module 1, module 1, module 1, module 1. But at least it's iterating. Right? So we got it to iterate. Now we know that we parameterized it earlier, so that it takes an argument as a title. But the title we can grab it from the module instance that we're iterating over, which has an attribute of title. So we can say instead of this hard-coded array text here, this could be an expression and say I'm going to pass you the module dot title. Okay. And there we go. Right? So now it's dynamically renders over that list and it displays correctly. Now there's one key thing here that it's only visible if you inspect this. It'll have some errors here, right? Some of the errors is that it's complaining that probably there's a misuse of the class name, and also as we're iterating, all these children elements that we're generating dynamically is missing a key property, right? So what happens is that what's complaining here is that these elements that I'm dynamically adding to the DOM, right, need to somehow have a unique identifier so that React can do some optimization on writing to the DOM, so that it knows that if something changes, if the state does change, it wants to make sure that it only needs to update the minimum amount of the DOM, so it doesn't have to render the entire element all over again, right? All these elements again. So it needs a unique identifier, and that identifier is called the key, right? And here we have to provide some unique identifier, which we don't have. I guess the title is a unique identifier, or actually no, we do have the ID here, so we can use that as a unique identifier, and we can say here module.id. Module ID. Okay. If we refresh, that worked. We seem to have a class name somewhere in here. Maybe whiteboard, course editor, maybe lesson tabs. Maybe lesson tabs. We might have a class somewhere instead of class name. Lesson tabs, maybe? Yeah, there it is. We have class here. So this should be name. It's complaining about this. And maybe we have a couple more. All right, so we would go and fix this, right? Instead of class, we should be using class name. All right, excellent. So we know how to dynamically render content. Right? We could have instead encapsulated. We could have instead encapsulated this here inside of a function, right? And the function would return whatever that map returns. Right? Although this is I think this is a little cleaner, right? You see it embedded right there and then. Okay.